Good morning, YouTube. It is the day after Christmas. So I want to wish those of you that celebrate Christmas a Merry Christmas. And today is Boxing Day. Doesn't mean you should go out and punch someone's lights out, I guess. It means you should box or unbox your gifts and take them back for returns. At least that's what I understand. Well, Christmas Day for me was really bad. A day riddled with a lot of anxiety, stress, panic, and fear. And all because my SolaX inverter did something I didn't expect it to do. So if you've not subscribed, please click subscribe. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. So yesterday, for the last 2 days, let's go back to history. The batteries have not charged fully. The day before, 2 days ago, it got to 95%. The day before that, 3 days ago, 95%. 2 days ago, it got to 70%, a little over 70%. Now, if you understand the way these lithium batteries work, especially the BMS, the battery has to see 100% for you to actually know what full capacity is. Well, we did not get there during those 2 days, and at about 2:41 a.m., the lights went out. Normal, nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't expect it to go up that early, but it went off, and that's fine. I got up in the morning. I cleaned the panels for the second time because it's been really bad. It's the Harmattan season and it gets very dusty here in Lagos. So what did I do? I went up to the roof and I cleaned the panels for the second time. First cleaning, I took a mop and a bucket. I used the mop to clean the panels, and when I left, there was still a lot of dirt on it. Came back the next morning with clean water, clean mop, and I mopped the panels. So now it's 8 o'clock. The panels are supposed to be producing, but I was seeing 145 watts going to the batteries. Now the batteries were at 10%. They'd gone down to 9%. At 10, same thing. 11, same thing. Now a little bit of panic had started to set in because I was not sure what to do. So first thing I did was I turned everything off. I unscrewed the top of the battery, removed that top, turned the BMS off, turned the two breakers off. That's after I turned the PV and turned the inverter off. And then I turned the battery breaker off, and then I did the BMS and the master breaker. Went upstairs, came back down 20 minutes. The battery had gone completely off. I turned it back on. It beeped. The orange, instead of that green light, it was orange because the battery now was at 8%. I turned the inverter on, turned this breaker. Let me show it to you. Turn this switch on because I turned it off before. Turn that switch on and nothing happened. The batteries were not charging. So now, as you all know, I'm 100% off the grid. I don't have a generator. I don't have any other source of electricity. This is it. So the prospect of spending the entire day or the next day without electricity was not very appealing. So I started sending messages to SolaX Power. I wasn't getting any response. So I sent a message to my sales rep and my internal rep. And then they explained that everybody in China was on some sort of holiday or weren't available. They got someone in the EU to help. While Lee, who was in our tech group, started to respond. He asked me to explain to him what was going on. I did. I woke up in the morning I woke up in the morning, the power had gone out, which I didn't have a problem with. Now the sun is out, and we have the best sunshine we've had in 3 days, and guess what? The batteries were not charging. Instead, the batteries were discharging. So he goes, okay, let me talk to the R&D guys, I'll get back to you. So now, I go and I bring out a solar lantern, which I have from Schneider, and I put it outside and I start charging it. And do you know why I was doing that? Because I was anticipating that I was going to go the entire day with no power, and I needed to charge my phones to be able to communicate with SolaX and the rest of the world. Now, the other thing that panicked me was my freezer wasn't on at the time, and it's full of meat. You have lots of Ziploc bags of meat in there, and the idea, and it's not been frozen long enough, and the idea of losing all that meat was making me sick. So the idea of not having power, and losing my meats just was not good enough. I started to get an upset stomach. I had to run to the bathroom. So now it's 1 o'clock. It's about 12:30, 1 o'clock. We'd gone 11 hours now without power. And the Lee at SolaX eventually says, okay, you know what? I think I know what the problem is. Could you tell me what the firmware version on the inverter is? So there's a screen you go into. Let me show it to you. The about screen, and let me see, an internal code. An internal code gives them an idea of what the firmware version is. So when you do an update, some of these numbers change. So I go in and I punch the internal code, I send it to him, and then he decides he's going to send me firmware to update to get the inverter to run. So I get the firmware, and now the fun begins. Now, the last time I did it, I don't know how I did it, but obviously this time around, my brains were not functioning well enough to know how to put the firmware. I put it on a flash drive, put it into the inverter, and the inverter was not seeing it. It would start the update, it would turn it off, and the firmware wasn't getting updated, nothing was happening. This continued for over half an hour, and now I'm like, I'm smarter than this. Why isn't this happening? Why isn't this working? So he asked me to show him the directories on the flash drive, which I did. And then he told me that the update, the file that says update is supposed to be on the same directory instead of the individual firmware that I was going to do the update for. So I added that, stuck it in, and guess what? When I go to do the firmware update, it actually opens and then shows me the file, asks me to confirm that's the file I want to update. And then I selected it, it updated that. Then when I go to do the next one, same thing. This time he erased the old file and then replaced it with the new file. Now the firmware that I got is brand new, so they couldn't push it through online. They're not put it onto the online platform yet. So I had it on my flash drive and I put it on the inverter. And once I put it on, I turned the inverter, well, when you do firmware update, it turns the inverter off. So once I turned the inverter on, the clicking that it was doing, it kept clicking before you click on and off. I think it was the MPPT trying. It clicked, and guess what? The battery started to charge. It was like, holy, it's like I won the lottery. It was like, oh my God, I'm going to have power tonight. The idea of not having power was driving me completely bonkers. I had been going to the bathroom. That's how upset I was. Now I'm going to have power. So this was now about 1:10. So it starts charging, and then it gets to 10%, gets to 15%, gets to 20%, and the power still wasn't on. Now I'm going to myself, we didn't set a restart voltage for this thing, so what do I need to do for this to come back on? So I just, you know what, go lie down and wait. And then the battery hit 30% at about 2, a little after 2, and Alexa comes on and makes a noise. And that's when I knew I had power again. So it restarts itself automatically. Last time I lost power, I had to turn the inverter off and turn it back on. I did not realize that it got to a particular percentage and then it came back on. But the level of anxiety I felt yesterday, my Christmas was ruined. I was supposed to go to a friend's house for Christmas. I did not go because I didn't have power till almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that was an entirely ruined day, but I learned some nice experiences about doing firmware update, recognizing that it was important and critical that we test run this product at our facilities first, iron out any issues before we install them for customers. And this issue wasn't a big one, it was just a firmware update issue. I believe they didn't explain to me what the firmware did, but I guess once the batteries were below 10%, the system wouldn't charge. And the firmware they pushed through to me resolved that. So today is December 26th, a much better day. The batteries are charging. We ran the AC through the night, but we turned the fridge and freezer off because for 3 hours it wasn't, well, for 3 hours, 4 hours, it wasn't enough to get the batteries fully charged. Today, we've been charging almost the entire day. So, well, it's currently, let me see what time it is. Hold on. It is 10:34. So, we've been charging a little longer. Well, we'll charge much longer today than we did yesterday. So we should be able to get the batteries to 100% today. With me cleaning the panels and the amount of sunshine and the amount of time we have, this battery should get to 100% today. So, it's a better day. Today I'll be doing Christmas lights. So my next video will be Christmas lights from Lagos Island. I had to get a new stove. That one is pretty old, as you can see, it has rust at the bottom. So that's one thing that happens in Nigeria, especially Lagos. Things rust. It doesn't matter how well made they are, they will rust. So it's critical that you get equipment that wouldn't rust. So I got a new stove that has electric. Let me show it to you. Let me show it to you. So that's the new stove. We're actually cooking with electricity right now, as you can see. So that's the new stove. It has an electric hot plate on it, instead of me using this one I used to use before. So I prefer this to that. So that's it. Let me go back and see what we're consuming, and then I'll wrap this video up. This is one of my longer videos in a while. We're currently pulling 1,710 watts. That's between the AC on the fridge and freezer and the hot plate. And let me see if we're charging the batteries or not. So we're pulling less than 1 amp out of the battery, 241 watts. So batteries are 29% right now. So it's discharging, but not by a whole lot. So if you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up. If you're yet to subscribe, click the subscribe button once again. This is Dr. Sola coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria.